Hi, folks. If it feels like America just escaped a fever dream, you're not crazy. We did. Inflation's cooling off, Trump's back in office, and yet somehow the left is still stuck in their own satirical world. College kids are melting down over pronouns, Hollywood's eating itself alive, and Democrats are out here flailing like it's still 2020. Case in point, Representative Jasmine Crockett, who just demanded a mental acuity test from Trump. Yes, the same guy who just spoke for 90 minutes straight without confusing Ukraine for Costco like Biden would. Meanwhile, the last president was busy losing debates to teleprompters and shadowboxing air. So today, we're diving into the fantasy land where facts get filtered through feelings. Contradictions are a feature, not a bug, and the punchline always points left. Let's get into it.
Like, the fact that no one is questioning his mental acuity or fitness to serve is beyond wild to me, right? Like, the fact that they sat around, called Joe Biden Sleepy Joe Biden, and as I said before, at least you could sleep at night because you didn't have to worry about your 401k disappearing overnight. You didn't have to worry about these allegations of fake invasions. You didn't have to worry about the cost of food just skyrocketing or skyrocketing cost of all of your electronics. You know, the fact that Apple was flying in planes of iPhones before the tariffs hit, like, this is crazy work for no reason. So, you know, I just hope that people remember, because seemingly they got amnesia the first time. And so you've got opportunities to vote. And I will tell you that every single special election we've had, Democrats are swinging no less than 15 points. But honestly, we should be swinging 30 and 40 points because of the level of incompetence and harm that this administration is bringing upon all of us.
When Representative Jasmine Crockett opens her mouth, it's like watching someone speed run a humiliation ritual in a freshman debate class. Let's unpack this fever dream of a rant, shall we? She starts with, the fact that no one is questioning Trump's mental acuity is beyond wild to me. Really? No one. That's a classic straw man if I've ever seen one. Pretend your opponent's getting a free pass when in reality, Trump's mental fitness has been obsessively dissected for years. Entire media outlets built their brands around 25th Amendment fan fiction. The network she's on, MSDNC, practically sold merch for it. Meanwhile, Joe Biden can't make it through a sentence without needing subtitles, but somehow that's reassuring. Then she trots out the Sleepy Joe line and attempts a bait and switch, saying, at least you could sleep at night because you didn't have to worry about your 401k disappearing. This is the kind of revisionist history that makes you wonder if her memory's on the ballot. Under Biden, inflation peaked at a 40-year high, interest rates soared, and housing affordability hit record lows. The stock market tanked in 2022, wiping out trillions in retirement savings. But hey, at least she didn't tweet mean things, am I right? Now let's talk about economic fear-mongering. She blames Trump for skyrocketing food and electronics prices. Ma'am, food inflation hit double digits under Biden. And Trump's tariffs? They're strategic and negotiable, unlike Biden's scattershot spending that lit the inflation fire. And the Apple story she mentions, it's true that they rushed shipments in 2019, as they likely did just now to avoid Trump's tariffs on China. But that's global trade strategy, not an economic apocalypse. What's crazy is pretending it's worse than shipping baby formula overseas while American shelves sat empty, which happened under Biden's administration. Crazy where the Democrat priorities lie, am I right? And let's not skip over the real gem. Crockett claims that Democrats should be swinging 30 to 40 points in elections. That's rich, considering they just lost the House, just lost the Senate, and just lost the White House. All with Trump on the ballot. Not to mention, Trump flipped every major swing state and helped drag local races across the finish line while Democrats flailed in key battlegrounds. If anything, Trump's presence devastated their margins. So this fantasy where they're entitled to blowout wins isn't just delusional, it's political fan fiction. Believing Democrats deserve a 40-point swing is like arguing Bud Light's PR meltdown was a marketing masterclass. Keep dreaming, buddy. So here's the truth. Trump's mental acuity isn't being ignored. It just looks sharper by contrast. What Jasmine Crockett is doing here isn't analysis. It's just projection. Every accusation she throws at Trump is a confession about her party, economic mismanagement, manufactured outrage, and an embarrassing inability to argue in good faith. But hey, keep talking, Congresswoman. Every word you say is a campaign ad for the other side. And lucky for us, she does keep talking. And it's like every time she opens her mouth, it just incrementally gets dumber and dumber.
I just had a group in my office not even an hour ago explaining that we need to do more on immigration because they don't have the workers that they need, and they are in the construction realm. So I am telling you that this is a failed thing, but we've got to do better to connect the dots and let people know the reason you can't afford a home is because of these failed immigration policies. The reason you're not going to be able to afford your food is because of these failed immigration policies. And the same can go for the hospitality industries, where we have so many of those in the hospitality industry that are saying they do not have the workers that they need right now. The reason you can't afford a home is because of these failed immigration policies.
Wow, looks like Jasmine Crockett has managed to turn the entire illegal immigration crisis into a weird infomercial for cheap labor. Let's walk through this spectacular crash of logic, shall we? Crockett kicks off by saying she just had a group in her office, probably a bunch of lobbyists or developers, who claim they need more workers in construction. And just like that, Crockett decides the solution isn't to improve vocational education, raise wages, or reduce red tape for legal migration. Nope. The answer apparently is to double down on illegal immigration, because nothing screams 21st century progress like importing a shadow workforce to prop up industries that refuse to pay fair wages to American citizens. Then comes the jaw dropper. She says the reason you can't afford a home is because of those failed immigration policies. That's a bold claim. Spectacularly false, but bold. Housing prices are skyrocketing due to inflation, interest rate hikes, limited supply, investor speculation, and government mismanagement at every level. And who's responsible for all that? His last name starts with B and it ends with N. Now, you know what doesn't make housing more affordable? Flooding the labor market with under-the-table workers and adding millions of people to communities that are already facing housing shortages. You're not solving the problem doing that, Jasmine. You're straining it further and then blaming everyone but yourself. But Crockett doesn't stop there. Why would she? She doubles down and claims food prices are also up because, you guessed it, immigration policy. Not because of supply chain disruption, is not because of inflation caused by runaway spending under Biden, not because of fuel costs or ESG farming regulations. No, apparently the real reason eggs cost $5 a dozen is because we're not letting in enough illegal labor. It's like blaming the fire marshal for your arson conviction. And let's not gloss over her appeal to the hospitality industry. Hotels and restaurants supposedly can't find enough workers, so naturally her solution is to erode the border even more. You'd think she was running a staffing agency out of her congressional office. Ever heard of automation? Workforce training, incentivizing citizens to return to industries decimated by COVID lockdowns and government mandates? Apparently not. When your entire worldview depends on turning illegal immigration into a moral virtue and economic necessity, you don't look for balanced solutions. You just parrot Chamber of Commerce talking points with a progressive twist. What Crockett's doing here is classic misdirection. She's taking legitimate problems, housing costs, food inflation, labor shortages, and pinning them on the lack of illegal immigration, as if the U.S. economy would collapse without an underground workforce being exploited by major industries. It's a rhetorical sleight of hand meant to shift blame away from Democrat-led policy failures and pretend like the solution is to open the floodgates wider. Now, let's be clear. The reason people can't afford homes is because Crockett's party, the Democrats, printed trillions, crushed small businesses, inflated the currency, and let hedge funds scoop up housing like it's Pokemon cards. The reason food costs are up is because of supply shocks, bad trade policy, labor distortions, and overregulation. And the reason hospitality is struggling, try paying competitive wages instead of crying for illegal labor like it's some sort of economic pacifier. But hey, I guess if you're Jasmine Crockett, it's easier to blame the American people's pain on Trump's very successful immigration policies than take 1 ounce of responsibility for your own disastrous governance. And speaking of disaster, a lot of people are very upset with Tim Pool's take on Carmelo Anthony murdering Austin Metcalf.
There was an argument between Carmelo Anthony, who was from a rival school, who was there, and there were a bunch of kids from this town or whatever, and they got into an altercation. They told him he wasn't supposed to be there. Apparently they had words. Carmelo Anthony pulled a knife out from his bag and said, "Touch me and see what happens." Witnesses said either he was touched or grabbed. There were different witness accounts, but that Austin Metcalf did put hands on Karmelo, who then stabbed him once in the chest before running away. According to police, Carmelo Anthony, when he got apprehended or turned himself in, however the story goes, I mean, different accounts, he asked if Austin was going to be okay and said it was self-defense. He said he grabbed me and I said self-defense. The family is arguing it was self-defense. It's strange to me that with this story, the right is adamant that this kid just killed another kid and he should go to prison forever. And I'm like, we don't even know what happened. Like, you've got witness testimony that sounds like a fight happened at a school. Then I've heard the argument, yeah, well, he shouldn't have had a knife. He brought a knife to a school, and it's like, okay, what kind of knife was it? Was it a utility knife? Was it a switchblade? Was it a machete? Like, did he have a steak knife? Was he coming back from culinary class where he had fine Japanese blades for cutting cucumbers? I have no idea. You're allowed to carry knives I'm pretty sure in Texas, especially if it's like a utility blade. You're also not allowed to grab people. Nobody knows the exact specifics of this story with Karmelo and Metcalf. Some witnesses said that Austin touched Karmelo. Some say he grabbed him. Whatever. The courts will play it out. If weapons are banned, he's going to go to jail. However, in a general self-defense context, this is why I'm saying the story I find so confusing. We have always maintained, when it comes to self-defense, it is not the responsibility of the victim of an attack to determine the extent of that lethal force.
Yeah.
If they are being attacked, their perception of how far that force goes is it.
Tim Pool is once again proving that when you don't know the facts, just flood the zone with confusion and call it nuance. His take on the Carmelo Anthony stabbing, yes, the other Carmelo Anthony, a teenager involved in the killing of Austin Metcalf at a Texas track meet, is a masterclass in misdirection, false equivalence, and strawman logic dressed up as pseudo-legal analysis. Let's untangle this mess that Tim put together. And look, I liked him, but he's just wrong in this one. First, Poole sets the stage like it's a bar fight between equals. According to him, Karmelo was just a rival school kid who got in an altercation and was touched or grabbed, so he pulled a knife and stabbed the guy in the chest. Sounds simple until you remember that Karmelo wasn't a competitor, wasn't supposed to be there, brought a knife to a high school event and stabbed a student in the chest after being asked to leave a tent. But sure, Tim, let's treat this like it's a fencing duel gone wrong. Tim then makes the baffling claim that people are being too harsh by saying Karmelo should face legal consequences, whining that we don't even know what happened. Funny because Tim suddenly doesn't care about evidence when it's not Kyle Rittenhouse on trial. This isn't about conservatives being bloodthirsty. It's about not excusing armed violence at a school event. This isn't murky. It's very clear. A kid showed up where he wasn't supposed to be, armed himself, and someone ended up dead. A 17-year-old ended up dead in his twin brother's arms. Then comes the kitchen sink defense. What kind of knife was it? A steak knife? A culinary blade? Was he just dicing cucumbers? Come on, give us a break, Tim. This is an old rhetorical trick. Throw absurd hypotheticals into the mix to distract from the actual issue. It doesn't matter if the knife was for filleting fish or gutting drywall. He brought a weapon to a school. That alone could be a felony in many states. And no, the fact that knives are technically legal to carry in Texas doesn't mean they're legal at school events or that stabbing someone becomes justified because you didn't bring a machete. The biggest flaw with Tim's argument, though, is pretending the law of self-defense is some free-for-all governed by the perception of the victim. Wrong. Self-defense isn't a blank check. It has to meet the legal standard of reasonable force, especially in Texas, where the law is clear. You cannot escalate to deadly force unless you reasonably believe your life is in immediate danger. A verbal dispute and a shove at a track meet don't justify plunging a knife into someone's chest. If we apply Tim's logic consistently, every bar bump, locker shove, or schoolyard scuffle could end in a stabbing and be labeled self-defense. Also notice how he barely mentions Austin Metcalf, the actual victim. Instead, we get a sympathy narrative for the stabber. He was touched and he asked if Austin would be okay, as if that somehow rewrites reality. That's not a legal defense, that's PR spin. And let's not forget, Tim implies it's strange the right is demanding consequences. That's right, unlike the left, many on the right actually believe in law and order. It's not strange to think stabbing someone in the chest at a high school event warrants legal action What's strange is using your platform to muddy the waters and turn a clear-cut case into a philosophical podcast debate. It's hard not to wonder if Tim Pool is deliberately playing contrarian here, not because he believes what he's saying, but because it gets clicks. This is the same guy who's built a brand on dissecting law, order, and public violence with obsessive precision. So for him to suddenly blur the lines around a stabbing at a school event feels less like genuine analysis and more like algorithm bait. And let's be honest, he's done this before. Take a fringe stance, stir the pot, go viral, then walk it back weeks later claiming he was just raising questions or educating himself. But this isn't about edgy commentary or hypothetical debates. This is about law and order. It's about reinforcing that there are rules, even for minors, and that glorifying or excusing violence under the umbrella of a not actual self-defense claim only feeds the culture of lawlessness we're supposed to be rejecting. At the end of the day, Tim's argument isn't about clarity. It's about casting doubt. But doubt isn't a shield for bad logic or irresponsible analysis. Karmelo didn't just defend himself. He broke rules, carried a weapon, initiated a confrontation, and from all the evidence and witness testimony we've seen, done it with the intention of antagonizing someone whose life he ended up taking. A 17-year-old who left behind a grieving family and many traumatized children at that track meet. And no amount of armchair legalese is going to change any of that. So ask yourself this: when did we start accepting chaos as nuance and violence as ambiguity? How far have we slipped when the burden of proof no longer rests on actions, but on how well someone spins a story after the fact? We're watching the slow erosion of accountability, masked as empathy, defended by half-truths, and applauded by those who benefit from confusion. If someone can bring a weapon to a school event, end a life, and still be framed as a victim, what does that say about the moral compass of the culture shaping our narratives? Maybe it's time we stop outsourcing our judgment to talking heads and start asking harder questions, because the truth doesn't get clearer by accident. You tell me what you think in the comments down below. Hope you have a terrific day. Peace.